everybody! In this video I'm going to show you how to upgrade the disruptive PSI-56 incubator with the new motor model. This new motor has a higher drag capacity, so it increases the weight that the machine can support. And in addition, as it is more powerful, it tolerates much better the small discompensation of weight that can be in the tray. The plate that supports the rotation system with the motor is placed generally vertically. Also, in the first models, it is possible to find machines in which it is placed horizontally. The steps to follow are exactly the same in both cases. The initial models of the incubator has this type of motor. You will easily recognize it because it is black and made of plastic. The newer models have this other type of motor, which is grey and metallic. In order to perform this upgrade, you will receive the following set of parts: 5 screws, a new shaft for the rotation hook, a complete plate ready for installation with the new motor, horizontal or vertical as the case requires, a replacement root holder part that carries the fitting to the rotation hook, and a green plastic tube or a special drill bit depending on the type of machine. The tools that we will need to replace the motor are a flat blade screwdriver, the number 3 or 4, and 3 different Phillips screwdrivers, the numbers 0, 1 and 2, a hammer, a pair of flat pliers, a 3/32 Allen wrench, a 10 mm wrench, preferably a racket wrench, although we can also use some other types of 10 mm wrench. And finally, in the first models, which are only a few very specific cases, you will also need a drill together with the supplied drill bit. First, we will change the rod train frame part. I advise you to remove the rods for greater convenience. To change this piece, simply remove the 2 screws that fix it on each side with a Phillips PH0 screwdriver. Once the 2 screws have been removed, we will remove the old piece. Fit the new one and reattach the piece with the same screws it had. Now we only have to put the rods back in place. To change the motor, first we have to activate the turn function until the hook is fully retracted. From this point on, we will have to work with the empty incubator, switch off and unplugged. So, before we start, we will simply turn off and unplug the machine and remove the incubator door and the rod holder frame in a very simple way. To access the motor, the first thing to do is to remove the case where the electronic components of the machine are housed. To do this, we will remove the 6 screws that hold the housing with a PH1 Phillips screwdriver, and we will keep them in order to replace them later. Once the screws have been removed, gently slide the case toward the back of the incubator and disconnect the power supply to the GSM alarm and the humidifier, if applicable. Simply be carefully pulling the 2 parts of the connection. Store the case along the rest of the previously removed items for later installation. Now, with a 10mm wrench and a pair of flat pliers, we will remove the two nuts that hold the rotation hook to the rest of the system. To do this, we will hold the hook with the pliers while we remove the nuts that hold it with the 10mm wrench. Once the nuts and the hook are released, we will keep the nuts and the hook for later reinstallation. With the flat screwdriver, we will disconnect the three wires that power the motor, simply by loosening a little the screws of the terminal strip. I recommend that you take a photo of how the wires are placed to reposition them in the same way. Once the motor is completely disconnected, simply remove the screws holding the plate with a PH2 Phillips screwdriver. In this way, we will be able to extract the plate in its totality. We will replace the screws with a new ones later. In some models, it is possible that you also have the grounding connected to the plate by means of this coupling. If so, you will have to disconnect it simply by pulling it carefully. Now it's time to remove the shaft guiding of the rotation hook. At this point, we can find two different types of situations. In the first case, our machine has a thick shaft that will be directly compatible with the new shaft. In this case, we will simply have to remove the shaft using a hammer and the green tooth supplied. In the second case, our machine has a narrow translucent white plastic shaft that will not be directly compatible with the new shaft. In this case, we will have to use a drill together with the special drill bit provided to remove the old shaft and widen the hole to adapt it to the size of the new shaft. Once the old shaft has been removed, we will place the new one, fitting it with the help of a hammer. Now insert the hook through the shaft. We will place the new plate in the same position in which the old one was placed, using the previous screw holes. Screw the plate to the incubator with the screws provided with a Phillips PH2 screwdriver. If necessary, we will also reconnect the grounding. We will reconnect all the wires in the same position in which they were. Now insert the first nut. Fit the hook to the flange of the plate so that the flange faces inwards, not outwards. Now manually adjust the position of the nut so that, with the hook in the retracted position, it stops the flange of the plate. When the first nut is in the correct position, place the second nut and tighten it with a 10mm wrench. Finally, turn the connecting rod until the screw is positioned in the front of the flat part of the engine shaft, and fix it with the help of the Allen. Before closing the case, check that everything is working properly. Place the root tray frame, plug in and turn on the incubator. Activate the turn function to verify that the motor is working properly. If there is no power, we should check the power strip connection. Once the motor is working properly, check the hook position adjustment. Both, when fully retracted and fully extended, should not cause the rod tray frame to touch the walls of the incubator. In case the adjustment is not correct, we should correct the position of the fixing nuts. At this point, our technical service will check that everything is perfectly adjusted, and then we will tell you how to finish making the final adjustments if necessary. Finally, we will connect the green strip and close the incubator case, fixing it with its 6 screws. I hope you find this video helpful. We hope we will see you in the next one. And remember, at Psittacus, we take care of your birds.